Welcome to Breweries of America. I'm mikevsbeer. I'm in Paso Robles, California at the legendary Firestone Walker Tap Room. This is in their visitor center, and what I didn't realize, there's an entire campus here, but the guest of honor here is Matt Brynildson. He is the head brewmaster here at Firestone Walker, and for anyone that knows the Firestone Walker name and their beer list, there's much respect to sit down with Matt here. This isn't something that everybody gets to do. We want to share some of his knowledge and background and history with all of you on Breweries of America. So, Matt, thanks for having me out, man.
Welcome to the brewery.
Absolutely thrilled to be here. The reason why we're here is the Firestone Walker Invitational Beer Fest.
Yep.
Legendary. We're going to get to that in a minute. But first and foremost, where were you born and raised? How'd you get introduced to brewing, and what brought you to California?
I was born and raised in the great beer drinking state of Minnesota.
Minnesota,
yeah. And you can tell from my name, it's a Norwegian background. My family's from Norway and Germany, both, but they settled in Minnesota. College years in Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan specifically. We talked a little bit about this. Home of Bell's Brewery.
Love Bell's.
And I credit Larry for bringing me to beer. This was it'll date me for sure, but this is the early to mid 90s. Bell's was established in the 80s. So they were one of the few, I think they might even been one of the first production breweries in that part of the state, certainly in that part of the country. Larry was this incredible pioneer. My aha moment was Bell's Porter. With great pride, say that I was there to taste the first Two Hearted batch. Rob Scala was the R&D innovation brewer at the time for Bell's, and he came up with Two Hearted, and I got to taste that first batch.
And Two Hearted really almost put West Coast IPAs in the Midwest on the map. Like, that's a flagship.
Absolutely. In fact, if you roll the clocks forward a little bit, when I came to this brewery, the first beer I designed for Firestone Walker was Pale 31. I had Two Hearted in my sights, and we used Centennial hops, and we dry hopped with Centennial to differentiate it from Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, which is, of course, a Cascade-driven beer. So our differentiator was Centennial, and I learned that from Larry, Rob, and everybody at Bell's. So.
What a phenomenal story.
Which is funny to talk about today, like Centennial was this aha hop, like that was the new cutting-edge hop.
And now it's like
early
just
2000s, and now
standard.
it's like in every beer, yeah.
What a cool story. You thought we were at a Firestone Walker video, and it turned into a Bell's video, right?
Yeah, but then the story goes further. So I never worked for Larry, but he had a homebrew shop, so I would get my homebrew supplies from him. I got in good with the brewers. I'd get my yeast off the bottom of their fermenters. I made some of the best homebrew in the neighborhood, which made me think I should, take it pro, right? It wasn't until I went to school to take a brewing class that I realized you could actually make a living as a brewer. And so I promptly resigned from my chemist job, working in the hops lab, and got picked up by Goose Island Beer Company in Chicago.
Another great legendary brewery as well, yep.
And it was just perfect timing because it was 95, 96 when they were transitioning as being, one of the best brew pubs in the country on Clybourne in Chicago, started in 88. And in 95, 96, they opened their first production brewery. And I came on as an entry-level cellarman. And within 6 months, I was leading the brewing team on Fulton Street at Goose Island.
That what you're describing, I'm going to make a point here. The industry here that Matt's talking about is brewing beer. But the principle, replacement-driven leadership, where you find and you mentor young pupils to carry the torch long after you're out of the game. Larry Bell, he did that with you. And you're probably doing that with other people right now. And that is just a success principle. When you invest into other people, your success is guaranteed. People get it all wrong. They think, I'm going to succeed by taking advantage of others. Wrong. You succeed by lifting other people's up and pulling them up on your journey of success as well. Like that, everything you said there, I've read so many leadership books, is boom, that is it. All this talking about beer, I'm getting thirsty. Cheers. Salute and Prost. So I'm drinking an 805 in the 805, and it's even better here than it is when people ship them to me. I drink them in Michigan. Okay, what brought you to California?
Yeah, so I'm at Goose Island, and it was a rocket ship ride. I mean, that brewery went from zero in the very first year of production. We did 25,000 barrels, which at that time was unheard of.
First year, wow.
It was recognized by the Brewers Association as the fastest startup production brewery at that point in history. In '96, we developed the recipe for Goose Island IPA. Again, influenced by Two Hearted because we used Centennial hops in that beer. And that quickly became somewhat the flagship or the best-selling beer for Goose Island. After 5 years, I don't want to say I was burnt out, but I definitely had a feeling that there was something more out there. I had visited Ken Grossman's brewery at Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. I'd come out to Anchor. I'd seen a lot of what was going on the West Coast, and I just had dreams of brewing on the West Coast. I at that time thought that the West Coast was the big league of craft brewing. You know, once I got to the West Coast, I realized that what was going on in Kalamazoo and Chicago was cutting edge, right what was going on out here. I decided to go west. I got an opportunity to work for this very brewery, but it was owned by Slow Brewing Company.
Okay.
So I took the job of brewmaster for Slow Brewing in 2000, January of 2000. 1 short year later, Adam Firestone and David Walker purchased this brewery, moved their brand into, and the rest is somewhat history. I signed on as their new brewmaster in July of 2001, and I've been here ever since. So what is that, 24 years I've been working for Firestone.
What a dream. What a dream come true. But you kind of, you created that through your actions. You could have been content. Hey, I've climbed up to this level of the mountain. I'm going to camp here in Chicago with Goose Island. That's not a bad gig. Like, that's a good gig. But inside you knew there was something more waiting for you.
You know, probably at the time I was young enough that I thought like, oh, having creative control, complete creative control was the goal. And then, you know, to your point about leadership and building teams, it's more about, you know, establishing a well-oiled machine in terms of a team of brewers. And I mean, there's so much more than just the creative side of this game. So cool thing about Firestone Walker was it was a couple of people coming from the wine industry, a winemaker and an Englishman, and the Englishman loved classic English ales, and the winemaker loved barrels and knew the wine industry and knew the wholesale side of the business. They came together and they created this whole notion of barrel fermented ales. Each year we would release another beer. I told you about Pale 31, and that was a big hit, but it wasn't until 2006. Now the company started in 1996. 10 years on the West Coast, this brewery didn't have an IPA.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't until 2006 that we launched our first IPA, which is Union Jack IPA.
To think that you guys were here all the way to 2006 without an IPA is crazy.
I know. And
so
I kept asking year after
history.
year, I was like, is this the year we launch an IPA? And they're like, nope. And then finally they let us go. Beers like Pliny already existed. Obviously Celebration Ale, Sierra was making that. Even Liberty from Anchor. There were a lot of great IPAs in this market. I feel like because we waited so long to launch, we were able to go to school on each and every one of those beers and kind of take a piece of each that we really liked.
Yeah, that's a great story.
To create Union Jack. And we launched Union Jack to great success. In a very short amount of time, it became the best-selling beer in the brewery. Until 2012, when 805 was born, the beer that you're drinking, that was the best-selling beer of the brewery. So when you take the tour of the brewery, you're seeing a brewery that was built around a heavily dry hopped West Coast IPA originally, and only more recently has shifted gears where 805, a blonde ale, is the best-selling beer of the brewery. Hoppy beer is still really much, you know, tied into the DNA of this brewery. I'm still in love with hops from the days I was a hop chemist. The Invitational, for me, I say every year, it's kind of like I have a wedding every year because all my favorite people roll into town. We have some of my favorite brewers. I would love to say the best brewers in the world, but that's my opinion. So you're going to see, you know, what Matt thinks is great beer. And it's going to be beers from all around the world. We have some new brewers from Japan. There's a brewer from Finland this year.
I saw that,
We have a very small brewer from Belgium who's making hazy IPA, so it kind of bucks the idea of what Belgian beer is all about. At the same time, we have another lambic blender from Belgium that you're going to get to taste. And then, you know, all the suppliers and the whole industry kind of converges on this event. We managed to get a festival done in the meantime, but it's mostly about networking with our favorite people in the industry and just having a great time.
It's perfect. So that's a perfect segue. This is the weekend for the 2025 Firestone Walker Invitational Beer Fest, the 13th year, I believe, that this is taking place. Over 70 brewers. So that's what it is. Give us a bigger picture on how it got started, what your vision is, where it's going, like the 10,000 foot down to however deep you want to go.
So back in 2011, I was approached by, you know, I call him one of the town fathers. His name is Tom Madden. He's a local lawyer, but he's also involved in a bunch of the non-for-profits in the community. Just everybody knows Tom Madden in the town of Paso Robles. Anyway, he approached me because I think he had seen the wine festivals of the Central Coast have such great success, and he's a beer fan, so he's like, we should do a beer fest. Don't you think that's a great idea?
I like this guy, yeah.
I had felt that a lot of beer fest by that time had devolved into parties. You would go to these beer festivals. You might not meet a brewer. You might meet someone from a distribution company or a salesperson from a brewery.
Very typical on the ones I've been to.
And by the end of it, everybody's kind of bleary-eyed and not really thinking about quality. So when he said beer fest, I was just like, oh God, I'm over beer fest. He's like, no, wait a second, why? And I explained that, and he said, well, if you had the perfect beer fest, what it would be? And I said, you can't afford that. He's like, well, try me. And I was like, well, I wouldn't pick local breweries. I'd pick breweries from all around the world. I would air freight the beer so they're fresh. I'd fly the brewer into town with the beer so that you're not just tasting a fresh version of that beer, but you're meeting the artisan who made the beer and they can explain it to you. I want to have great music because it's most of life, but
goes
it's not
hand
all of
in
life.
hand, though, right?
You have to have great food because it needs to be a balanced day. I just like it's like kind of the impossible. It's a dream, and he's like, let's make it happen. We did our very first event, and somehow it magically came together, and enough people found out about it that the tickets also sold out within seconds. We were like, wow, how did that happen? And so each year, this keeps happening where the tickets kind of vaporize instantly. We're able to collect money not just from suppliers in the beer industry, but it's all sorts of locals that are not beer related that are supporting this thing because it by no means pays for itself. It's all going to a local nonprofit called Pioneer Day Association. They work on kind of preserving the history of Paso Robles. They have a big parade locally. And the magic of it all is that I had enough friends in the industry by that time that I could call them. Originally, it was kind of calling in favors, saying, "Hey, would you think about this? Would you fly in from Europe with your beers and pour and entertain this crowd?" And everybody said yes. It was just amazing, and the first year was just magical. And we just keep trying to make it better each year, adding more breweries, yes, but also adding more good food. Just trying to keep and elevate the whole experience. We've learned is if we take really good care of the brewers, they take care of curating this great festival. So starting tonight, we're going to have an event at a local pub where it's just a meet and greet for the brewers. Tomorrow, we rented out the water park so all the brewers can have a splash day. It's going to be 100 degrees tomorrow, so we're going to have a day on the lazy river just networking with other breweries. Right. And then there's kind of a green room space outside of the event that's just for brewers, and it's just to facilitate networking, exchanging ideas, and you can only imagine if you're getting brewers from all over the world and throw them in a field together.
You get that community of brewers together. Iron sharpens iron. People are learning from each other's experiences. Like the transfer of knowledge is probably exponential compared to people operating in the vacuum of their own brewery and just doing their own thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that is how the industry has happened. But this sort of event is like a mastermind of brewers.
So I think back, and I'm not saying this isn't happening now, but craft brewing grew to what are we, almost 10,000 breweries. There's so many. So it's hard to find a technical conference or even a school that's going to teach somebody who's been in the industry like myself for 30 years something new.
Oh, you guys heard it here. Maybe you guys have known about it for a long time. But the whole point of this series is to introduce to you, the beer lover, the craft beer enthusiast, things that are happening in this amazing industry. And you're hearing it here firsthand from one of the best, Matt. I mean, you've been working here for 24 years. I wanted to say 25, almost a quarter century. Firestone Walker, it's just a legendary brewery. You guys are going to see all of this after the event. It's going to take me some time to cut all this down into an actual segment, and that's okay, but just make note of it. So in the future, if you're coming out to California, you don't have to just go up to San Francisco or down to LA. You can look at the point right in between, which is Paso Robles, right here, and make plans to visit Firestone Walker on one of your trips. And what I noticed coming out here, me and my buddy Juan, there are many other breweries, not just Firestone Walker in this area. Like, you'd probably be hard-pressed not to stumble into a dozen of them in this general area. Not that I count, I'm just swagging a guess there, but It's pretty impressive.
Craft beer is alive and well on the Central Coast. It was a little slow to gain the momentum, relative to Bay Area or even LA. But yeah, it's alive and well here, and you're going to taste some of those beers at the festival.
Yeah. Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy. This has been absolutely awesome. Thanks again for your time,
No,
Matt.
thanks for coming.
Really appreciate it.
We're going to have a good time.
Yeah. Take care. Peace.
Cheers.